Hi, everyone. This is Antoinette Montalvo for another episode of your fully revamped Montalvo International Women in Life and Leadership, where my will is kind of our catchphrase. And the mission is for your will and my will to represent his will. And just so excited to have another guest with me. Just looking forward for you to hear her story and just kind of hear a little bit of her journey as it applies to understanding calling and purpose and identity. And I am very excited because I think her journey is so beautiful because we've known each other from kind of the start of one end of her journey to now. And I just like how God kind of intertwines all these things together. So stay tuned. It's going to be wonderful. And I hope you enjoy this next episode of My Will. So hey everyone, it's Antoinette Montalvo again for your next episode of Montalvo International Women in Life and Leadership. I have my guest, Christine Wiethop. I am so excited to have Christine here with me because we've gotten a chance to know each other for quite a while. And I think our lives have kind of circled back around to each other. And I find it very beautiful to have this moment to chat with her today. And just thinking about who she is and what she represents. And when I think about a kingdom-minded, purpose-driven person, she definitely comes to mind immediately. And so I'm so excited for you to get a chance to chat with her, to hear a little bit about her journey and her story, especially as it applies to finding your calling, finding your purpose and understanding just maybe how God may take you in one direction and go completely in another direction to find that passion that really is a way of ministry, because the kingdom and being able to work with what he has for us in his will may not look traditional, and it can come out in a variety of different ways. So Christine, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing very well. I'm so excited for us to get a chance to chat together, especially in the midst of so many things going on in our society. I think it's important for people to be inspired and to be encouraged, and to have an opportunity to see how God's will is playing out in the lives of many different other women, especially just for this, the purposes of this podcast of empowering women and finding ways to encourage you in your calling. And so I would love for people to hear a little bit about you and who you are, if you've gotten a chance to catch your breath from your busy schedule.
Well, let's see. Where should I start? I was a math teacher for 17 years, and I taught English for a couple of years before that. And went from public school to private school, got burnt out at the end of each of those journeys. And in the last year or so of my last year of teaching, I started a business called bakingsweetscents. And I never saw it coming. I didn't plan to ever own a baking business. But one day a friend reached out and said, Christine, can we talk about fundraising with your macarons? And I was like, sure. And he just said he needed sponsorship for 3 of his teams, his soccer teams, and couldn't find sponsorship. So he said, we just need to do fundraising. And I said, okay. So we number crunched and figured out how we would do the fundraiser. And at the end of it, I said, well, how are people going to find me afterwards? He goes, well, you could launch a website. And I was like, okay. So I got friends to help me with a website and a name and a logo. And we launched that. And who knew that over the next 3 months, I would get caught up in all holiday orders and things like that. And eventually that people would ask me to bake for weddings and all these things. And I would launch a full business and end up leaving teaching. So here I am 4 years into the business and really asking God where he wants me right now in this crazy time. Along the way, I've asked him every single day, where do you want me? How do you want me to serve you and others and bring people closer to you? And all along, he has shown me the way. And there have been moments where I've just laughed because I never realized he was so funny, that my path would not be straight and that it would not be what I ever thought it would be, but that it would be his will and I would be to it. So my prayer every day is just that he would show me his will and what he wants of me.
I mean, that's beautiful. And you make it sound so perfect in a neat little package. And in my mind, I'm sure I'm rolling around like 17 years of teaching to now opening a business in baking. And I'm sure there's a lot to unpack in the middle of that. And
There
if
is.
anything, I enjoy knowing that there was a progression for you. And I know, again, kind of personally knowing you for many, many, many years, how your journey into teaching first was how we
Right.
got a chance to be connected right now.
Right.
And, kind of giving a little backstory for the audience that you were the teaching assistant for a very instrumental individual for both of us, actually,
Right.
Mrs. Martin. And I met her my junior year of high school. I had just moved into the South from longtime home in Florida. And it was one of those very hard, tough times of transition. You're just in the beginning of your teen years, I guess, and trying to figure yourself out. And all of a sudden you find yourself kind of in this new setting. And her presence was like everything that was needed for me at that time. And I'm sure the same for you as well during kind of your tenure in teaching and going forward. And so I love that teaching was such a long-standing instrumental thing. And I think in a lot of ways, the way I've seen your business play out, it's almost like you're teaching in a different way, right? You're
Yeah.
being able to kind of minister in a different way. So
Yeah.
I'd love to hear a little bit more in terms of what the teaching career looked like for you. And
Okay.
when you got to that point of burnout, how did you know that it was time to pivot versus saying, you know what, I'm just going to give up teaching and do nothing, or maybe I just need to keep pushing and then, we'll see. Maybe it'll get better after a while.
Right. So let me give a little more backstory about Mrs. Martin. So I actually met her when I was in high school, and
Wow.
I also had just moved to the area. And as a junior in high school, I was pretty lost, and I had just changed schools. I was
Wait,
at
you're
my
kidding. You're kidding. This is
no,
not the
I'm
same story. That is amazing. That is amazing. All right, keep going. I didn't know that part. So I feel like I'm hearing my
yes.
own story echoed for
So
me.
she actually was the teacher who made a difference in my life as
Mm,
a high school student that was just in a really dark time. And she became sort of my advisor, my mentor. She was my student council advisor. She was my teacher. She became my mentor, somebody who cared and someone who I could go to anytime, really. I mean, I had her phone number. I would call her occasionally just to check in. Um, so that it's kind of funny. We stayed in touch. My younger sister, also developed a relationship with her in the same way, and so our families stayed in touch. Even in college, beyond college, I was teaching in Japan, and I stayed in touch with her then. And I saw her when I came home, and she helped me get that first job in public school where I
mm,
met you.
yeah.
So it's kind of funny. I mean, I should go back probably even before that. So when I was in college, I started out in engineering because I felt like that was the way I was supposed to go. And a year in, I decided, you know what, this is not really what I want. This is what I thought my family wanted of me.
Mm,
Um, and I thought about, well, how can I serve? What do I need to do? How am I called to serve? And in the end, I thought, well, you know what? Mrs. Martin is the one who made a difference in my life. Maybe I need to be a teacher and give back the way that she gave to me. And
mhm,
so that's actually the reason I changed my major um, to mathematical science and then got certified to teach. I did take a break and to like expand my knowledge in my minor, which was Japanese language. So I did go to Japan to do that, but then I returned to the States and started teaching math at Southside because she had connected me to the job there. And so
mm,
for 2 years, my first 2 years in teaching here, I was able to serve on the same faculty as her. And that was so beautiful because not only was she my advisor, my mentor, my friend, but she became like my go-to for like bouncing things off of for teaching. And so in my first 2 years of truly teaching on my own, I had her as my mentor in teaching. Um, then that third year she left and she was a teacher for teachers, but still we were in touch. And when she became ill, like we stayed in touch through that whole thing and we were very close. She became one of my closest friends. And while it was really hard to see her go um, to heaven, I was able to kind of carry on her legacy and serve on a committee that would honor her and keep her legacy alive here.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I am with her, and how she brought me to Southside. And then of course, Southside is where I also met you. So it's just interesting to see how these paths all kind of come together.
It absolutely is. And it's one of those things that, your obedience to kind of follow teaching was impactful for me, and by me being able to be impacted by Mrs. Martin and you and so many other people, it just shows how instrumental and how specific and how just very intentional that God is in terms of how he develops his kingdom impact. And so I appreciate and commend you for being willing to kind of make that first major pivot for yourself of going from engineering, where you thought this is what was supposed to be kind of my calling. And I think as I'm listening to you now, and even though we've known each other for many years, I feel like it's the first time I'm hearing some of the deeper portions of your story. Sounds so very similar to my own in terms of pivots that I've taken in my life, big moves, and just being kind of found in this one particular moment and being impacted by the same person. And then that, after many years has springboarded into where we find ourselves now. So I love that.
Right.
I love that. And I love seeing how these things unfold. And I love seeing how, even if it doesn't always make sense, or maybe it requires another major pivot along the way, when you find that purpose and that identity and that calling in your life, as you mentioned, it's not all a straight path. But one thing that I have always loved, hearing my mother say is God wastes nothing. He wastes absolutely nothing.
Right.
So even in the 17 years, and even if you ran into kind of burnout, as we'll hear a little bit more, it wasn't wasted. The impact that you had and the things that you did were not wasted.
Right.
And if anything, I can say I am a testament to that, and being able to be a part of that. And also we see that, through the life of Mrs. Martin, what she has lived. And I think the impact that she's made on all of us. So thank you for kind of listening to that call during that time. So
I don't even know how there could have been another way,
absolutely.
So anyway, so I was at Southside for 5 years, and she was there for 2. And then the 3rd year we were, still in touch, and then she passed. And then the 4th year and the 5th year. So during that 3rd year, I was nominated as teacher of the year at Southside by my peers.
Mm-hmm.
And so during that 4th year, because of that, I was asked to serve on, I'll just say, a lot of different committees.
Right.
And so much was asked of me, and it was great. And I felt honored, but at the same time, it was so much that I guess I became too busy and lost a sense of balance. And then that led to my burnout. So I stayed for the 5th year, but really I felt like I could have left after the 4th year, just because I was so burnt out. And in that 5th year, I thought, you know what am I going to do next? And I said, well, I majored in math so that I could go back to corporate if I wanted to. That was my fallback plan. Like I said, I'll teach for a few years, I'll give back, and then I'll work in corporate America. It'll be fine. So I didn't sign my contract that 5th year. And I don't remember what month it was, but it was sometime in the spring. And right after not signing my contract, I was at church one day, and a friend turned to me and said, "Peace be with you. And by the way, St. Joseph's is hiring an Algebra 2 teacher." I mean, this is in the middle of the service. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I walked out, and another acquaintance, stopped me at the door, like as I was leaving the church, and said, "We know you're really busy. Will you please just consider it? St. Joe's is hiring a math teacher." And I was like, are you kidding me right now? Like, I didn't sign my contract. Like, I thought I was done with teaching. I get to the car, and I called my brother. Like, I didn't even drive anywhere. I just called my brother. My brother was an engineer, and he had taken a ministry job with his church, and he had just moved out to Washington State to work for St. Joseph's Church.
No way.
I called him, and I was like, you won't believe what just happened to me. I told him about both things that happened at church. And he goes, well, duh, you can't run from God. And I was like, are you kidding me? So, I said I would check it out. So I did. And I called, and then I interviewed on the phone And then I went in person and interviewed and everything. And so long story short, I ended up being there for 12 years.
Wow.
Teaching math. And I loved, the first part of that and felt called to be there. And towards the end of it, of course there were rough times along the way, but towards the end of that, things started not really working out. Like I started feeling like I couldn't stay because I felt different about my role there and that I couldn't be honest about what I wanted to accomplish there. And I just prayed. I was like, Lord, where do you want me? And he made it very clear it wasn't there. Just some things became really difficult. And one of my friends, when I expressed it to her, she said, Christine, don't you think this is God telling you it's time to go? You would never leave on your own. It's too easy to stay. Don't you think this is him showing you that you can leave and go find what it is he wants you to do? And that was so powerful to me. I needed somebody else to say that it was okay to leave.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that makes me think about, when you think about some type of key, because a lot of people may question, okay, I know I feel this kind of nudge to maybe make a transition or to do something different or anything in life, any kind of transition or major change. But there's always that question of how do I know for sure? How do I know? How do I confirm that? And so I think that's so powerful to hear you say of one, that it would have been easier for you to stay in that role. It would have made sense. It would have been in your comfort zone. You could have made it work,
Right.
even if you felt uncomfortable, or dissatisfied. It's everything still kind of worked, and you were good at what you do, right? Because otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to
Right.
have random people come up to you and say you should do this thing. In addition to kind of God nudging you, but then I think the second piece of that is just that understanding from someone else, that giving you permission to explore more, right? And so I think that's one of the biggest keys in my mind, and maybe you have some of your own keys in terms of in your life of what's giving you that sensitivity to hearing God's voice and acting on it, right? Because we can hear it and we can hear what he's saying, and we could hear, things aren't lining up, things, challenges are coming up, and not to say that any little challenge is a cause for changing things, but
Right.
when a season's up. I think most of us at some point in our life have some level of intuition that, what, on a seasonal matter, like this just doesn't work anymore. And there are some moments where when you find that it doesn't work, you have to stop and say, is it me or is it the other thing? And when you really evaluate it, kind of weighing out, what's the impact of it? Now, obviously if it's a long-standing marriage and you're just bored in it, like don't just go bail out of your marriage kind of thing without thinking it through. But if it's something, even whether it's in career or, whatever it is, but really kind of understanding what's the context, where is the season going, and what kind of shift does it require? Whether it's a big major shift like leaving a profession, or it's hey, we need to try, a different focus or something else. And so I think just having the permission to even think about that, and having, I think God's a great and beautiful and good father, and he will give you those, reminders outside of yourself, because otherwise we will just roll it through our head over and over and over again and literally psych ourselves out. But he will find these moments to give permission to, one, pause and think about it, and two, really consider and act on it. And so for you, when you're in this kind of crossroads, right? You've been teaching at this point you were at the 17-year mark, if I'm correct?
If I include Japan, that was the middle of my 19th year.
Wow. So this is like a, half a lifetime kind of thing of giving in this capacity, where, someone in your traditional circumstance might just be like, well, I'm just going to keep going, retire, and then I'll go on and do some other thing for a living. But that you found a point where you said, I have to literally leave and do something else because there's something more. How did you go from that initial thought to, having some kind of counsel around you? And we'll talk about the importance of having that supportive network to help you think through these major decisions. And then, finding out, okay, I know I need to leave, but what is the thing that I need to do next?
So I had, at that point, launched the business a year before.
Hmm.
And let's see.
So were you baking? Just to interrupt quickly, like were you baking? Did you bake all the way through while you were a teacher, or was it just
Yes.
like okay?
So the last year and a half, I had already started the business. So I started the business in fall of 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And this was fall of 2016 that my friend said, don't you think this is God's way of showing you,
Mm-hmm.
that you don't have to stay here, that he's ready for you to move to the next thing. So this is a year after I launched the business. I had a very successful first year, in the eyes of small business. And I was just thinking, what is it? Like, where do I go from here? And so that fall, it's too early to really make a decision at that point about my career, because I would definitely fulfill my contract, which went all the way through May.
Right.
But for some reason in January, we were asked to give a letter of intent. Normally I think it was in February or March, maybe February. But for some reason they asked us in January of 2017. And I was like, wow, it seems really early for me to already decide if I'm going to return next year.
Right.
And so I thought, well, I don't know, let me think through this. Like, do I want to stay here? Is God really calling me to make a change? And change is hard for me. Like I'm one of those people that has a very hard time with change, negative or positive.
Mm.
So I had to really pray, and I did seek counsel. I did, I talked to my husband to see what he thought, like, where are we in all of this, and can we make it if I don't teach full time? Can I just do the business? We had this conversation. I talked to other people in the small business world, about possibilities and how do I know when I'm ready to leap. And according to those things, I wasn't technically ready to leap. Like financially, I wasn't able to leap. But when I talked to my husband, Josh, we said, you know what? We have been through some things that have made us live on one income before. We've been able to do it in the past. We can do it again. And this time, if it's to try and see if this business is where I'm supposed to head, then, we'll just see where it takes us. And so in January, I signed that letter saying I was not going to return. And the last 3 months of that school year, so I guess March, April, May, I was basically working 2 full-time jobs.
Wow.
It was pretty crazy. I had weddings, small events like birthdays, bridal showers, baby showers, things like that. I was working so hard the last 3 months of my teaching career. It was really honestly crazy. Like I did not sleep much at all, but I thought, you know what? I'm not going to break my contract. I see an end in sight. I'll be able to focus on just baking after this, and then we'll see where God takes me.
Right.
And so it was an interesting way to end what I thought was the end of my teaching career. We'll get to the rest of that later. But it was hard in many ways, and I was looking for purpose in everything. And I was even thinking about where's my purpose in this last year of teaching? Like, why did I even stay this long?
Right.
And the answer to that was one student who became like family to us. So anyway, that's a whole nother story. We can talk about that another time. But she's a beautiful part of our lives, and we're thankful for her. I started getting involved in weddings. And so in 2016, I only did one wedding, and it was a friend of a friend who asked if I would do cupcakes. In 2017, so this is when I was finishing my teaching career, I did 12 weddings and then a couple of rehearsal dinners.
Wow. So wait, just to pause for a second. You went from doing 1 to 12 within the span of like 1 year. Okay. I just want to highlight that because I think that is really important when you think about that transition piece of going from one major thing to the next, where, I mean, and did you find relief? Were you finding relief in baking, even though you're, as you said, technically working 2 full-time jobs?
So the beautiful
Find
thing
something
about,
returning to you in that.
yeah, the beautiful thing about my baking for me is that it really gives me peace and joy, because I pray while I bake, and I pray specifically for everyone in my life, but also for the people who will partake and receive
Mm,
what I make.
yeah.
And I often ask my clients and friends, for prayer requests. And I'll just say, as I bake for you, how can I pray for you? And and sometimes there will not be a response, but many times there will be a response and a great need. And I know that that doesn't happen by accident.
Right.
Um, so I'm happy to pray for people while I bake. And it really gives me such a great sense of peace and joy, because I know that that comes from the Lord, and that that's not from me. And even knowing that I didn't start this business because I wanted to start this business, but in response to a fundraiser, I know that it was given to me, because if you had asked me a month before I launched, I didn't even know it was going to be called Baking Sweet Scents, or that there would be a website, or that there would be a business. Um, so really all of it's been given to me. So I feel like it has become a ministry for me, and a way for me to serve and answer God's call.
Yeah, no, and that's wow. I mean, just the fact that you pour in prayer over every single person, that is a tremendous gift and responsibility. Because think about what's being physically consumed and spiritually consumed
Yeah.
in that process. It's like I want everyone praying over my food before I have to eat it, besides myself. And
Right.
so I think that again, it highlights where God was taking you and how he was setting you up and putting you in the place that you needed to be. And that, your shift wasn't just about like, hey, I'm tired of teaching, so I'm going to go do this other thing. And this is just my other outlet. But it was literally a transition from this was a calling and a ministry for me in the way of teaching to now this other calling and ministry in the way of baking, where you're still serving others and you're still giving into others, in this, one is kind of this consumption of knowledge and the other one is this consumption of, food.
Dude.
This is me being very analytical about it, but it's amazing. It's amazing to see how that all pulls together. And again, I'm so like in awe of this story, because again, I see so many parallels of for myself in 2017 was
Oh,
a big
yes.
year for us when God was calling, my husband and myself to kind of make this big launch, and even, to think about what our ministry of Montalvo International looked like, and to leave, our home in Philadelphia to move to South Carolina. Is just a lot of things seemed to be happening in 2017, and God was really
Yes.
kind of on the move and making these major transitions where I was, kind of in a traditional clinical setting as a nurse practitioner. Now here I am kind of playing out these other things that God has placed in my heart. So you are not alone. And it just, again, I'm sitting here like beaming from ear to ear thinking, look at you, God, because you are just, he always, again, is so very strategic. And oftentimes for us, it looks like, what? This is left field. But he's like,
Yeah.
no, I know what I'm doing. I'm putting all the pieces together. So at just the right moment, at just the right time, these different things are going to intertwine. And it speaks to, I think, the beauty of who he is. And if we are willing to answer that call and that will for our lives, how he allows that to blossom. So I love that. I'm just kind of just so excited about that. So I have to ask, even in all of this, did you grow up baking when you were younger? Did you have like recipes that you had on stock all the time? I mean, I love baking, but I never thought I would like turn into a business, like
So, growing up, we had parties all the time. I'm Filipino American, and our culture as Filipinos is food and parties, basically. And so, even in elementary school, we hosted parties probably every 2 weeks or so. And I would help my mom with cooking and prepping and everything. And then she would almost always hand me a handwritten recipe and say, and make this too.
hmm.
And it would be dessert. So it started like that. And I guess I started baking as a kid. I think I was like 8 maybe when she started just handing me the card. Um, and I found that I liked it and I was good at it. And so when I was teaching, I used to bake while teaching, and I would offer it kind of as an extra little motivation for the kids.
Yeah.
And then that's how it started. And then later, when I had what's called a household, it was like a homeroom / advisory program. I would make treats for the girls. I only had girls, and they would stay with me for 4 years. And I would let them choose on their birthday what they would want me to make for them.
Hmm.
Well, I started later asking my friends the same question, like, what would you want me to make for you? And so I started making new things because of them, like the French macarons. And so, yes, I guess I've been baking for a long time and I didn't see it becoming a business. I mean, my college roommate and I talked about jokingly having a bakery when we are like ready to retire and
Yeah.
just for fun and all these things. But, jokingly, I never thought it would be an actual
Thing.
career for me.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And it just, again, it just kind of goes to show like these things are always kind of that underlying theme. And again, considering your track record, right? You were good at teaching. You could kind of do this other thing at the same time, but to make that big shift is huge. And so, I mean, kind of going back to where, the pin that we had placed in your story of going from year one to year two and having, 12 different weddings and the last year of teaching. How did you manage that? And how have you recovered and how do you find that right now? Right. Because I think we're probably both very similar of just, we will give till it hurts sometimes. And
Yes.
so it's like being intentional about finding that balance because you have to be sustainable. You have to be able to, I know the bitter taste of burnout, what that looks like as well. I remember, my first clinical position as a nurse practitioner, and that first year was just, it was such a bitter burnout. And it was one of those things where I had to question, am I ever going to like practice as a clinician again? Because I was just so exhausted.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
even now learning to that point of how to balance that and how to, not go overboard in terms of compassion fatigue and everything else that comes with it. How did you get through all of that? How did you, kind of recover and bounce back and then continue to want to make this business, even though you were juggling all these different things?
Well, the last 3 months of teaching, I think it was a lot of prayer and then knowing that there was an end.
Hmm.
That I would leave teaching and then I would be able to really focus on the business. Just having that the light at the end of the tunnel, knowing that it was just a short time, it was just a season that I would be working that hard. That's what got me through that, along with lots of prayer. Um, that summer came and I took a deep breath and then I transitioned into a commercial kitchen in that July and got a full retail license and then a full wholesale license just so that I could do that as well. Um, I booked and served for 27 weddings the next year
Wow.
and then 27 weddings last year also. So it was 27 2 years in a row.
Wow.
And it's interesting because, I took a deep breath and then I jumped into it full time. And really, things haven't slowed down for a while, to be honest, which is great. It just, to me, that was God saying, yep, this is what I wanted for you. This is where I wanted you to focus. This is how you can serve my people.
Hmm.
So I've been doing that for a while now. I'm finishing off my third year full time, I guess. The end of this school year, it will be 3 years. It's kind of crazy to say it out loud,
Yeah.
but that's where I am right now. And I haven't booked as many weddings this year. I took some time earlier this year. In what I thought was going to be my slow time, I still had like 5 weddings at the beginning of this year.
Wow.
And I thought, okay, is it ever going to slow down? And finally I had a week or two where I had a little downtime and I was evaluating things and thinking, okay, Lord, is this the pace you want for me? Is this the way you want me to serve? And so I started pulling back from weddings and from certain types of things that I didn't really enjoy making. I started focusing more. And then I found myself longing to teach. And so
Mm.
I said, well, I can teach macaron classes. I've done it before. And so I said, well, I'll finally, for a year, I had said I would offer them publicly where people could just sign up and come. And so I finally did that. And in that same like 2 week period of developing, creating those macaron classes, an opportunity presented itself in the form of a text message from an acquaintance saying basically, hey, we need a little help over here at this little school. Um, kind of like consulting, maybe helping, maybe kind of tutoring a couple of kids in the upper grades. Um, you know, maybe we should talk. And the same acquaintance had approached me 4 years ago in my last year at St. Joe's. And I said no, because I had already signed my contract and was serving that contract there. So when she approached me again, I was like, you know what? I'm going to ignore that text message for night. This was a Friday. I ignored it because it was like late Friday night. Saturday, I responded. We texted back and forth. Sunday, I met with the headmaster and this friend, basically had an informal interview. Monday, the math teacher called me. Tuesday, I went and shadowed. Wednesday, the headmaster offered me the position and I said yes. Yeah, so it happened really quickly, but it's very, very, very part-time. And I'm just, right now helping out with these 2 classes. I say that, but at the same time, that right before we started talking, I taught 2 classes as the lead teacher. So, I don't know what he's showing me right now. Like it's all unclear to me right now. But one thing that I know is clear is his timing is perfect. Because of everything happening right now with the coronavirus. I have been wondering, am I going to have to close because of the restrictions placed on us? And so far I have not had to, but I just kind of have seen it coming. And I've wondered, what happens if I do? And then this, knowing that I was asked to help at the school, I thought, well, they're saying if I want to work part-time for up to however many hours I can. So right now I'm feeling my way, but I'm going, God, is this your way of saying, I'm providing for you? And that's how I see it right now, is he's providing a backup plan for me right now, that if I have to close, that I can teach online at the school. And I've been doing it now for a couple of weeks, and I'm like, okay, Lord, you gave me all these skills. Um, to you be the glory. Let me serve you. Let me use the talents you've given me to serve you. Even last night, somebody said in the Tuesdays Together group, you're familiar with them. She named me, called me out by name, but I didn't hear it till later. I didn't get to get on live. And she said, Christine, how about online macaron classes?
Yes.
And I was just like, what? And I thought, okay, I literally only did the one public one. I had to cancel the second one, even though it was full, because of not being allowed to have more than 3 people in a group. But then she just said it on the video last night. Yeah, I guess I could do that. People can make it in their homes at the same time that I make it, either in the kitchen or at home if I'm not allowed to go to the kitchen. Okay.
I would love that. And I actually remember seeing that. I think I saw a message down in that particular video that I was watching as well. And I mean, immediately in my mind, I said, oh, God, you are so good, because again, he wastes nothing.
Right.
I mean, in the sense of like, you could be kind of navigating the waters of online teaching in this capacity to also merge that with what the next thing may look like for you, and what that, how you can merge those 2 skill sets. And it's like, again, he knows how to make it all work. Like, he literally knows how to make it all work. And that is, it just gives me the chills just thinking about it. So
yeah,
I'm excited to see
I'm just in awe, because his plan and his timing, they're always perfect. And, I may not see it in the moment, but lately I've been seeing it a lot.
I love that. So then, to kind of like figure out some of the little bits of ins and outs, and then just to hear some fun stuff at the very end of you. And because I know you have probably lots of different other things to kind of run to. And so I could go on and on and on. I could literally just hear so much. During, all these different moments and times and transitions and teaching, and then, where you're busy with stuff, and then the full-time business, like, where did life go? How did marriage go? How did you know it was time, even financially, to say, I can do this? What did you do in terms of thinking about learning all the business skill set that you had? What kind of support came in that practical aspect? And you don't have to go into every little detail, but what were some things that kept you afloat and grounded in all of that? What kind of conversations did you have to have? Because I'm sure, it sounds like there's a lot of trust that's been built for you and your husband, Josh, just in terms of figuring out, this this me following my purpose and calling doesn't just impact me, it impacts us and what we're doing and where we may go. How did you feel like you were able to kind of integrate and balance all that? And it's, and even if it's not all perfect, what's worked for you?
Communication has been really important between Josh and me. Prayer. I mean, I can't even express like how my faith life has been so important. And there have definitely been ups and downs in it throughout, this whole process. But really like focusing on trusting God and being intentional about my quiet time and my, devotionals and being in the word every day has been helpful, because I found that during the time that I was not doing those things, those were the times that I felt lost,
Mm,
and that I lost my sense of purpose for just a little while in there. I just thought, what am I doing? Like, why am I
mhm,
just rushing around doing all these things? And even though
mm,
I was still praying while baking and doing all those things, like I, I think I got too busy for a period of time that I still lost my purpose, like in the bigger picture. And so I had to take some time to carve out rest time and be more intentional just about being a little more balanced. I've yet to find the balance that will really truly work, but I've found little things that I can do to like be more attentive to my marriage. And I've
mhm,
found things that have helped me to be more focused in the word, like
mhm,
joining a Bible study to hold me accountable, things like that. Um, I've I've found such, I guess, friendship and support from other small business leaders. And just knowing that we have a group, in the upstate is such a great community for local businesses. Just knowing that I have people who are like on my side,
yeah,
even that Facebook Live video last night that, I didn't catch till later. Just knowing that those resources are available and that there are people like cheering me on who are like photographers or, they're in other industries, but they are other small business owners and leaders. And there's comfort in knowing that I'm not alone, even though I own this business, on my own. I mean, with Josh, but really it's mine.
yeah,
Um, there's comfort in knowing I'm not alone in the small business community. That even during this uncertain time, that a lot of us are cheering each other on, and even through social media, getting people to still support local businesses so that we don't all just go out of business. um I don't know, all of these things have worked together, and like I said, I haven't found the balance. There are still crazy days, like even today, honestly, like where I overbooked myself,
hmm,
um, and realized it, late last night. I was like, why do I do this to myself? And then looking forward, looking at the calendar for even next week and wondering like what it will bring. Um, I don't know. I think most of it is trust and knowing I'm not alone, and then communication with the people who are big parts of my life. All of those things are working together to help me to keep going and to follow God's plan. I have lots of people in my life who are praying for me, um, and remind me of that daily. That they're praying for me and that they know that it's not always easy, but they're here and they're walking this journey with me. I even have customers who've become friends who will just send me messages here and there and just say, "Hey, like I'm just checking in. How's it going?"
mm, mhm,
Um,
mhm,
and that's been really cool to see how God shows up, um, through friends and through even customers who have yet to become friends. It's really cool to see Him showing up and saying, "Hey, I see you. Like
mm,
I'm still here. I'm guiding you. Like I'm always just waiting for you to turn back to me, when you get lost."
yeah, I love that. That is, I think it's beautiful, and it's just, I mean, I think it's a great place to kind of wrap this particular piece of your journey and just thinking about, when he calls you,
Yes.
It doesn't always have that kind of straightforward look, but being willing to respond is a very, very big key. And being willing to give yourself permission to trust, even when things are unclear, is another big key. Because you could have
Yes.
very easily, let it all go and say, "I'm done with all of this," like not going to even navigate these waters. But then also too being okay with the ebbs and flows of even the fact that you're doing a little bit of teaching now, right? Like that he kind of gave
Right.
you this space to heal, so to speak, from maybe the exhaustion of teaching and what that looked like, but knowing that was still a very beautiful piece of your gifting and passion as well, and knowing that you're good at it and that he can still use that as a providing point, even if it's a stepping stone to the very thing that you're doing now, and looking for those pivots and ways to kind of pull it together. And just having that communication and support is a big thing. And I think especially when people are navigating calling, a lot of times they stay inside their own head, and
Yes.
and they're not willing to let other people in on what's going on inside their head, and that fear of what is someone going to say. And so just to know that you've had that support, that you've intentionally sought that support as well, even in the way of business, of saying, what, I need to have the right people around me so that I know how to deal with challenges that come my way, but also that you have intentionally invested in people with your business. It's not just about your business, but you've invested in people to the point that they can kind of give back to you too. So, oh man, I love everything about all of that. So, kind of in the last like 5 minutes, rapid fire, I'm going to ask you a couple of like fun, quick questions, and tell
Okay.
any big events or offerings or things that you have coming up besides, teaching that online macaron class, which I'm looking forward to listening and watching because I'm sure we would love to do it. What is your signature dessert? Which I probably already gave it away.
I think they're French macarons
Okay.
are my signature dessert. They're part of my logo. I didn't think that it would be that, but it is now.
Yeah. How did you get the name Baking Sweet Scents? Where did that come from?
So I made a cookbook a long time ago when I was in college, and it was sweet scents or sweet treats. I think it was sweet treats, but then it changed to sweet scents for me because I have such a sensitive sense of smell.
Hmm.
Sweet Scents, the name was taken when I looked for a domain name for the business.
Yeah.
My friend who created my logo said, think about adding a word that describes what you're doing.
Hmm.
I said, well, I'll be baking. So we, brainstormed and came up with Baking Sweet Scents, and the domain was available, and it just kind of stuck.
That's awesome. That is really cool. What is your favorite flavor of ice cream? Do you eat ice cream?
Ice cream. Oh, I love ice cream. Let's see. Depends on where I go. Probably peach is my
Oh,
favorite.
I don't hear many people say that they like peach. That's that's
I
kind
do.
of
I love peach. Well, we're in the South, and so
yeah.
especially in season, I
Yeah.
do love peach ice cream. What else?
And
Mint
then,
chocolate chip.
ooh, nice.
Yes. And Baskin Robbins was always like Jamocha almond fudge, but I can't have almonds anymore. So now there's a new one that's like just a Jamocha, I think.
Nice. What's the strangest thing that you've had to bake, whether it's like a certain ingredient you've had to use or just something weird that you never thought you would bake before?
Hmm. Probably, I don't know if this is strange, but it's with all the allergens. So I make a lot of allergen friendly stuff, and I've
Mhm.
had people come to me with like a whole long list of allergens. So I have made cookies and cupcakes for a child who can't have, oh goodness, dairy, eggs, tree nuts, legumes. Um, what else is on this list? There are like literally 10 items on the list
Wow.
that he did not have. And I created a recipe for cookies and another one for cupcakes that he could have.
Wow. And I can honestly attest to you having made like special request stuff and that they were delicious. So you're good at what you do. And
Thank
then finally, any big upcoming offerings, how can people find you? I don't know if you're going to be doing, if you do start those online classes or whatever you do, what's something that people can be left with in terms of finding a little bit more
you.
about
Okay.
your business?
So right now I'm doing the DIY kits. So I'm doing DIY cupcake kits, DIY mini cake kits, DIY mini cupcake kits, and DIY macaron kits. So where people can spend time as a family, siblings, couples, friends, while they're at home right now. They can do these kits together so they can fill their own macarons or decorate their own little cake or cupcakes or mini cupcakes. So that's what I'm doing right now. It's only available by contacting me through social media or through my cell phone. It's not on my website. I can be reached through my website for other things and even for special orders. So that's bakingsweetscents.com. And the macaron classes, the online macaron classes are probably coming. Go. But I have been offering the public ones as well. So like once things get back to normal, whatever that new normal is going to be, I'll offer those again also. And then, really just Instagram and Facebook are the two main social media sites where you can find me.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for this time, for sharing out of your busy schedule. And I just pray that God continues to bless your hands in what you do and everything that you have in store for you. Thank you for sharing with the audience and just letting us know about your story and giving us that inside scoop, giving me an even more personal inside scoop, and just knowing that, that calling and that purpose that he has you in right now is truly a gift. So yeah, love it.
Thank you. I'm so glad that we've reconnected over the years. This is such a fun time to talk about our stories and how they intertwine.
Absolutely. It really is. So that is all we have for you today. Again, this has been Christine of Baking Sweet Scents. Christine Wiethop, and she's an incredible individual all the way around, very giving heart and great at what she does. I highly recommend the milk chocolate toffee if you ever order anything from her whatsoever. Just a personal plug for that. So, I'm so excited that we got a chance to share her story. Again, you can find her at bakingsweetscents.com or find her on social media, Instagram and Facebook at Baking Sweet Scents. She's true to her word. She's an authentic individual, and she really is living out the purpose and calling that God has for her. And we hope that this episode is inspiring to you for another episode of Montalvo International Women in Life and Leadership. Again, where we are just really excited about empowering women to understand that your will and his will match up together, and you can really find what that looks like when you're saying, what's my will, God? What's your will, God? How can we do this together? That they all align together. So we are just hoping that you continue to be inspired. We're thankful for each of you that has chosen to listen, and stay tuned for our upcoming episodes. Bye.